Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Psychiatric Exile. Today, we're going to be talking about Classroom of the Elite, a fine anime series that I watched recently. And the main thing that called my attention about this anime was the personalities involved. And as a psychiatrist, it hit me as pretty obvious that some of these characters had pretty extreme personalities that probably met criteria for different personality disorders as described in the DSM-5. So let's talk a little bit about these guys and see what kind of sense we can make of their behavior. First, a little bit of general information. The anime is based on a manga by Shogo Kinugasa. It has 3 seasons, 38 episodes, and we're waiting for the fourth season, which apparently is in the making. It started broadcasting back in 2017. It's available on Crunchyroll. And this whole analysis I'm doing is based on the anime. I'm not familiar with the manga. So, if there are differences or further character development in the manga, then I'm not aware of it. So I'm not incorporating it into this video. As usual for this kind of video, this is for entertainment purposes only. It's not meant to represent clinical advice at all. Don't watch this video and start diagnosing yourself or diagnosing people around you. That's a trap that all pretty much all or most medical students fall into when they first start studying these personality disorders, and just don't do it. It's not going to work. So what's a personality disorder? It's an enduring pattern of inner experience and behavior that deviates markedly from the expectations of the individual's culture. It is pervasive and inflexible and has an onset in adolescence or early adulthood, is stable over time, and leads to distress or impairment. And impairment means like social impairment, functional impairment, relationships, and so forth. Your job, professionally, everything that's foundational to your social functioning. As usual, you have to rule out that the behavior, the symptoms are not explained by another medical disorder, drug use, or a medical condition. You can diagnose this. You can diagnose a personality disorder in adolescents if the features have been present for at least a year. The exception is antisocial personality disorder. The patient needs to be at least 18 years old. Before 18 years old, we call that kind of behavior conduct disorder. And in real life, personality disorders hit you in the face. I mean, when you meet someone with a personality disorder, it's very obvious. It's very extreme. Someone may have features of a personality disorder that may be problematic, but not necessarily meet criteria for the full disorder. But when you're facing when you're face to face with a full blown personality disorder, you're not going to miss it. I mean, it's pretty extreme. But many of these, they're not written in stone. With growth, with life experiences, with the right relationships and modeling and flexibility, the person may, with treatment, the person may eventually not meet criteria for the diagnosis. And I want to acknowledge this website. It's called Uzitsu. This is the um, web address, and it helps me a lot during the making of this presentation because it organizes the information for each character very neatly, and it saved me from going back to the series and rewatching it all over again, making notes for every episode. I just review the information here, and I just recently completed the series, so it was a nice compliment to what I just had watched. So the first guy, I'm going to be discussing four characters, and the first character is Rokusuke Koenji. And this guy, it's, again, when he appears in the series, it hits you in the face that his personality is very extreme. The way he talks about himself, here's a quote. He says, "I am so beautiful, and the environment around me enhances my looks. I am the pinnacle of beauty." His behavior is arrogant, self entitled, overconfident. He treats others with contempt and sarcasm. He looks down on his classmates, and he refuses. Some of the behavior we see throughout the series, for example, he refuses to move from his position even though there was an elderly lady in need of a seat, and he abandoned his class during the survival test. So this kind of behavior is a hallmark of narcissistic personality disorder. Now, every personality disorder has a core, and this is the key. That behavior that hits you in the face when you interact with a personality disorder or with someone that meets criteria for a personality disorder, it hits you in the face because this core is present. You have to go from the core to the traits. You cannot go from the traits or make a diagnosis just based on the traits. Everybody has traits of something, uh, but it's the core that defines the diagnosis, and then the traits validate the diagnosis. So, what's the core of narcissistic personality disorder? It's a pattern of grandiosity, need for admiration, and lack of empathy. The person needs to have at least five of the traits we're going to discuss in a minute, at least five of them. This personality disorder has a prevalence of up to 6% in the community, and most of the patients are males, up to 75% in some studies. So, what are the traits that we need to look for when we suspect narcissistic personality disorder? Because we've encountered the core that I just mentioned. The first trait is grandiose sense of self-importance, and the ones that are underlined are the ones that I think he has, and he definitely has that one as the second one. He's preoccupied with fantasies of unlimited success, power, brilliance, beauty, or ideal love, and I think in his case it would be mainly beauty, probably brilliance too. The next one, he believes he's special and unique and can only be understood by and should only associate with other special people. He definitely meets that one too. Requires excessive admiration. I don't know about that one. I think that he gives himself all the admiration he needs, and he is indifferent as to what other people think about him. So I don't think he meets that one. He has a sense of entitlement, like rules don't apply to him. He definitely meets that criteria. He's interpersonally exploitative. I don't know that we've seen him do that in the series, so I'm gonna say no. He lacks empathy. That's definitely present. He's often envious of others. I don't think that he is, or at least we don't see him being envious of others. He's so full of himself that he sees himself as pretty much not needing anyone else or anything that anybody else has to offer. He shows arrogant, haughty behavior or attitudes, as we saw in the behavior towards the elderly lady that needed a seat on the bus. So he has one, two, three, four, five, six. I think he meets the criteria. My prognosis for him is poor. Unfortunately, I don't think he'll change. I don't think he has any reason to change. I think he'll continue to, at least not in the foreseeable future. I think he'll continue to struggle, quote unquote struggle, because he's oblivious to the consequences of his actions. But he'll continue to deal with this behavior for a long, long time, maybe for a lifetime. Now, narcissistic personality disorders tend to, and personality disorders in general, tend to soften up with age. So who knows? Maybe in his 40s, 50s, 60s, he'll be easier to deal with. Yeah, but poor prognosis for him, in my opinion, overall. Second guy is Kakeru Ryuen. His quote is, "This is the way that I do things. There can be nothing more or less." Um, Remember from the definition of personality disorders, these are people that have a rigid way of seeing and relating to the world and others. And this quote, to start, it shows you that he's pretty inflexible, and it's a warning sign that we may be dealing with a personality disorder. He's a delinquent. He does not lead his class by trust, but rather by fear. He's blameworthy and reprehensible, who loves and a person who loves causing trouble for others. He's willing to use his followers for any goal as he sees fit to achieve his purpose of controlling the school, and also out of pleasure, just enjoying himself. And he's pretty ruthless. We see that at different times of the series. He took a glass bottle and hit one of his followers on the head with it, and he showed no remorse after the fact. And that's just one of several examples. So my diagnosis, this is tricky. I'm saying antisocial personality disorder. You cannot really diagnose this on someone like him because he's not yet 18 years old. We'd have to call it conduct disorder, but I want to stay in the realm of personality disorder. And since these are fictitious characters, it doesn't do any harm to for theoretical purposes and consistency purposes to stay in the realm of personality disorders, so we can compare him to some of the other extreme personalities in the series. So what's the core of antisocial personality disorder? Is a pattern of disregard for and violation of the rights of others starting at the age of 15 years old. He needs at least three of the traits we're going to be discussing in a minute. The prevalence is about 3.3% of the population, and it's much more common in males. The DSM 5 doesn't specify a prevalence, but in my experience, it's almost exclusively a male diagnosis. There's concerns that it may be underdiagnosed in females. And maybe the difference in prevalence is not as wide as it would appear, but even taking that into account, it's much more common in males. So, what are the traits? That's the core. What are the traits that we have to look for to validate the diagnosis? And remember, he needs at least three of these. The first is the failure to conform to social norms with respectful to lawful behaviors. He definitely has that one. Again, the ones that are underlined are the ones that I think he meets. Repeated lying or conning others for personal profit or pleasure. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that we saw a lot of lying on his part. He was pretty upfront with his bullying and abuse. Impulsivity or failure to plan ahead. I don't think that's the case. He was pretty uh, rational and cool headed when it came to his plans. And antisocial personality disorders can include the sociopath category and the psychopath category. And the sociopath is the more impulsive of the two, and therefore is the one that cannot function in society. They end up in prison more often than not. The psychopath is the one that can manipulate the system to get what he wants because he's more cool and calculated. So the psychopath would not meet this criteria. And um, I think that's what we're dealing with in this situation. Next one is irritability and aggressiveness, as indicated by repeated physical fights or assaults. We know he has been in a lot of fights, so he meets that criteria. Reckless disregard for the safety of himself or others definitely meets that criteria. Consistent irresponsibility, not sure about that one, but definitely lack of remorse. So one, two, three, four. So we have four traits, therefore, that validates the diagnosis, quote unquote, validates the diagnosis. Remember, he's in real life, because he's a minor, we couldn't diagnose him with this. Something about antisocial personality disorder is really resistant to treatment. In fact, there was a trial a while back where they were teaching these patients ways to develop more empathy towards other people to see if they could improve their behavior. And what happened was that they started to use what they learned in the study to be better at manipulating people. So they had to cancel the whole thing and stop the study. They in my experience, and I think the general consensus is that it's really, I'm not going to say impossible because it would be irresponsible, but really hard to treat. uh, if the person accepts, maybe medication has a role here, at least to decrease irritability and impulsivity, if those are features uh, of uh, of the disorder in a specific person. But my prognosis for him is reserved. I think he can go either way, actually. I think we've seen flashes of empathy on him in his case. It seems like he somewhat does seem to care for his class, and he's young. So if that seed is watered, and he has the right encounters and the right models, and he's flexible enough, and remember, he's very young too, so he has time, I think there's a chance for him. So I'm gonna say reserved. I think he can go either way. Next up is Airi Sakura. The quote is, I, from the bottom of my heart, want a person that can reach me. She's shy and quiet. She often prefers to stay in the background. She's self-conscious about her body, especially around, people when she's in person. Like she's uh, very self-conscious about her body. And although we know there's another side of her that uploads more revealing content on the internet, and she has a passive attitude. And this is where things get a little bit tricky with the diagnosis, because I don't think Sakura meets criteria for any specific personality disorder, but I think she has enough problematic traits that, when taken together, cause enough distress and dysfunction to justify a personality disorder. And when that happens, we call it other specified personality disorder. We used to call this personality disorder not otherwise specified. On the SM4, they changed the terminology. So, what are the um, core problems for Sakura that, in combination, cause her personality disorder? On the one hand, we have dependent traits. So, dependent personality disorder is a pattern of submissive and clinging behavior related to an excessive need to be taken care of. This has a prevalence of 0.6% in the community, and it's evenly distributed between males and females. And then I'm not going to list all the traits of dependent personality disorder just for the sake of economy of space on the slide. But the two traits that I think she has of dependent personality disorder are in white, are underlined in white here. Difficulty expressing disagreement with others because of the fear of loss of support and approval, and difficulties initiating projects or doing things on her own because of lack of self confidence. I think she has both of those. And then she has traits of avoidant personality disorder. The trait of the core of that personality disorder is a pattern of social inhibition, feelings of inadequacy, and hypersensitivity to negative evaluation. The prevalence is 2.4% in the community, and again, is evenly distributed between males and females. And the two traits that I think she has of that personality disorder is a preoccupation with being criticized or rejected in social situations, and inhibition in new social situations because of feelings of inadequacy. So I think these four traits in combination, so she doesn't meet criteria for dependent personality disorder. She doesn't meet criteria for avoidant personality disorder. But I think these four traits cause enough impairment and distress in her life that in combination they uh, call for a diagnosis of other specified personality disorder. In the case of Sakura, I think the prognosis is good. I'm very optimistic that she's gonna get better, and maybe even by the end of the series, she's not gonna meet the she's not gonna have this diagnosis anymore. Even from what we've seen so far, she has made strides in becoming more assertive and self-assured, and joining Yanokoji's study group, for example. So I see good things for her in the future. And last but definitely not least, Kiyotaka Ayanokoji. And he says, all humans are nothing but tools. Very interesting character. He makes the series, in my opinion, very. You seldom see a character like this. This combination of traits. He's brilliant, but he also struggles with the personality disorder we're gonna discuss in a second. Throughout the series, we see him as inconspicuous and unobtrusive, detached, kind of in the background. He's socially awkward. He's bad at communicating with people and fails at correctly associating with them or for forming relationships. He tends to isolate himself from his peers, and something that's gives away the diagnosis a little bit is his affect. He has this emotionless attitude, facial expression, and voice. It's regardless of what's going on, his voice never changes. It's flat, just like his facial expression. We call that a flat affect in psychiatry. And I think he can be diagnosed with schizoid personality disorder. The core of this personality disorder is a pattern of detachment from social relationships and a restricted range of emotional expression. He needs at least four of the traits that we're going to discuss in a minute. The prevalence of this disorder in the community is 3.1%, and it's more common in males. But again, the DSM doesn't give you a specific number. When that happens, is because the data varies so widely among different studies that there's not a consensus. The consensus is that it's more common in males, but if it's whether it's 51% or 95%, we don't know. Now, this is pretty extreme because unlike other characters in the series, in the case of Ayano Koji, he has all the traits of the diagnose, all of them. So we don't have to choose. We don't have to get picky. Every single one. He needs at least four, and he has all of them. First one, neither desires or enjoys close relationships. The second one almost always chooses solitary activities. The third one has little, if any, interest in having sexual experiences with another person, takes pleasure in few, if any, activities, lacks close friends, and appears indifferent to the praise or criticism of others. So every single one, and he shows, let's not forget, he shows emotional coldness, detachment, or flattering affectivity. So in a world of extreme personality, he's the most extreme of all. And you mix this with a genius level intellect, and you get a really memorable and unique character. Like I said, I think he makes the series. My prognosis for him is fair. I was going to say good, and when I sat down and prepared the slides, and I saw that he actually has all the traits of the diagnosis, it gave me pause to say it was good. So I'm gonna say his prognosis is fair. Uh, and the thing with him is there are hints that his personality uh, developed in very extreme circumstances. It was probably even steered. He was steered to towards the development of this particular personality. It reminds me of Johan on the other anime classic, Monster. So his personality disorder is not based so much on temperament. It seems to be based much more on upbringing. So maybe again, encountering forming the right relationships, encountering the right models, the right life experiences might steer him in the direction of breaking out of that shell and forming a more complete relationship with a better ability of relating to others and socializing. We'll see. Time will tell. That's my hope. Also, the fact, cheating a little bit here, the fact that he's the protagonist. Hopefully, we'll see some sort of change for the better. So those are the four characters I wanted to discuss for Classroom of the Elite. Let me know what you guys think. If I missed anything or there are any other characters that you want to discuss, bring it up in the comments. But yeah, fun series. I'm really looking forward to the fourth season, and I'll see you guys next time. Until then, thank you for your time, and you take care of yourself.